When YouTube launched in 2005, it was a completely different platform compared to what we know today. Sophisticated algorithms and many new features have fundamentally changed the playing field for creators. And something similar has been happening in the global startup ecosystems. We welcome back Steve Chen, YouTube co-founder, mentor, and early-stage investor who can shed light on both. I'm Divya Gopalan, and this is Connected on TaiwanPlus. YouTube has over 2.7 billion monthly users, making it the world's second most visited website after Google. It's also the biggest platform for creators to monetize content. But first, Steve, I want you to have a look at this. Look at that screen over there and tell me whether you recognize this piece of video.
Oh, pajamas, the first cat video ever uploaded on YouTube, huh?
All right, yeah. Do you know what? It's pretty much still the only thing we can find that you uploaded, that we definitely uploaded on YouTube. So how much do you use YouTube?
No, I mean, that's a good demonstration of early on, it was like a little bit of experimentation on all the early employees and founders. It was like, what kind of videos are gonna take off? I think one of my co-founders uploaded a video of him in the San Diego Zoo. It was like, is this gonna take off? That was one of the first videos the first video on YouTube. I uploaded a video of cat videos. I think
you were onto something there because they're still taking off.
For some reason, there was even a global cat video convention that I was invited to go speak at. Not because I have a good cat video, but just the first cat video. But I think that I don't know how many exact views that has, but not that many. For the first cat video and for how popular cat videos are, I would expect it at least 10 times the number of video views that.
Yeah, I think lighting might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's something about the engineers that, I love the story when I first told my own kids, and back then, already at 3 years old, 4 years old, and they were using, I think, YouTube on the iPad, and they've been using it for a long time. And there was me scratching my head as to tell them, how am I going to tell them that, what they're using? As a proud father, but as a proud creator of YouTube, to be able to convey this knowledge. I'm like, I created this. And so when I first told them, his name is Jaden, this app that you're using, you want to know who created it? Daddy created this. And he was shocked, he was awed. But then,
Can you even understand what that meant? Because YouTube's been there all his life.
Yeah, no, so 5 seconds later, he was like, wow, you're like a great actor, Daddy. You're in every single one of these videos. And I think that there's this idea, this knowledge that there's a whole team, of course, an enormous team that's behind YouTube, and then there's the content creators and the viewers that are being able to use both the platform as well as the content that's on the platform, right? And so that was a fun thing of no, I'm actually in none of the videos, or if you want, maybe my cat's in one of the one, but what I meant is that but then I was trying to explain to them, what does it mean when you've created YouTube? And I guess in that sense too, it's like you created the platform to make it possible for the actual creative content creators to be able to showcase their content. And so in a way, I think it really is the coming together of a platform that if it didn't exist, the content creators wouldn't be able to show off their talents. But without you, so it goes both ways. And I think that I want to say even since the acquisition, I think Google has paid sort of respects to that aspect of it, that I think for most of the content creators on YouTube, they still take an active role in the 40%, 60% split in terms of the revenue, that the ad revenue that's generated from the content or from the subscriptions, they can actually share it with the content creators, making it possible that content creators can make it almost a full-time occupation, and maybe not even for themselves. They can even create a whole company just to create content on YouTube. Now that was something that definitely when I created my cat video and uploaded, I never thought was possible.
So you're not getting advertising revenue from that.
But it's amazing that you've been able to create almost an entire like creator, this content creator sector of like being able to work in that. And then, I mean, another thing is going to the 5th grade class and giving just the talk to some of these early young kids that are thinking about their own ideas. And I love that question when I think their teacher was asking, like, they were asking the kids around the room, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And all 11 of them said they wanted to be a YouTuber when they grew up. And I was like, wow, like that job, that profession, that occupation was non-existent a few years ago, right? Yeah, so
I can thank you for my daughter wanting to be a YouTuber. Is that right? Thank you.
That's something where, yeah, I'm telling my kids, like, I don't know about being the creator.
A little bit of irony there. Which is rich, coming from me, and my views coming from YouTube. So I love that you brought up kind of how your kids are viewing YouTube. Many content creators say that due to the way YouTube operates now, you're catering to a constantly changing algorithm rather than the viewers that they intended. What do you think of that? And is this how you saw YouTube evolve?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I mean, because just as much or just as important as the video that you're watching now is the related videos that you see to the right of the video. And I think that when Google first made that acquisition, we were conducting basically searches on the tags and the description of the video that you're watching. And so everybody would get the same recommendations because we were essentially just doing a search. But we started tinkering around with this idea that, and it's all an evolving process, was that if you can kind of abstractly think about the content on YouTube as being different islands, some larger than others, but different islands of content that are all related to a certain content type, regardless of the creator, but the content type is these are all pet videos. And within that, these are all cat videos. These are all cooking videos. These are all how-to videos. These are, and each one of these are different islands and there's related content in there. But then you start realizing that you can't just show all the related content that's related to just this video,
especially
or else you get stuck.
The volume you have now.
Yeah, because you don't want to just see YouTube as you want to see it as a video platform, a generic video platform, rather than just a cat video platform. And so it was important to be able to kind of dynamically showcase like other types of content that you would find interesting that you may have not seen before on YouTube, but you may be interested in it, but we don't want to overflood you with this. And so it was always this about, okay, we show related content based on a few methods and algorithms. One of them is going to be based on the type of content that you're watching right now, so based on the content, but the other one is going to be other people that have like this type of content. What other types of content do they like? And it's most likely that you're going to be watching that content as well. If you let that run completely algorithmically, completely just based on user data, and if this person watches this content and then starts watching this but stops watching it after a few seconds, that creates a sort of a negative relationship between this. So then you don't want to show that content. But it does start using a lot of that user behavior to be able to generate like related videos, relationships and recommendations and preferences. That's all kind of based on the uses of the 2 billion other users, viewers that are watching this content. And I think you get into issues where, are you recommending content that may be fake news but interesting, right? Like, is that okay to recommend? And sometimes like what exactly is even fake news? Because some people in the US be watching like Fox News and saying, well, that's fake news. Or if I'm watching CNN, if that's real, if that's NBC. I have a good 3
hours set aside for that conversation.
But I think like from the side of the engine, the algorithms from the YouTube side, I think that was always a challenge of like, okay, you're given responsibility for recommendations, but what exactly do you recommend? Are you supposed to be trying to be an educational site? Are you supposed to be a news site? Are you supposed to be deciding what is better for the user? And it's hard to decide.
So to put it simply, do you think you feel it's continued on the trajectory that you set out regarding the algorithm, or how the algorithm kind of suggests?
I think like I can't say what is the sort of the main drivers now, right? But I do know that during the years that I was still there, especially post-acquisition, it was starting to make the recommendations not for the, because at the time I was saying that when you watched a single video, everybody's recommendation was the same, because it was essentially just doing a search on this video. But now it's very different. If you're watching that video, same video, if you're watching that video, I'm watching that video, somebody else is watching, we would get very different recommendations. And a lot of it factors into what other things you've liked and disliked and watched, more recently in the past. And I know that was a huge amount of work to be able to get to that level. But then at the time that I was departing, it was then, if you still had more computation, then how do you continue to customize that algorithm and personalize that algorithm into what level, into what depth, and which variables should be factored in and should be more significant versus which variables should be ignored. And so, I mean, I think for the most part, I'm pretty happy with the one, as a personal individual user, unrelated to YouTube, I'm pretty happy with the recommendations that I get from YouTube. But I still know that there's only a certain amount that there's only certain swabs of content that I can get to with the recommendations, that I still need to go back to just searching for exactly what types of content that I want to look for when I want to search for something new, rather than continuing to just watch what is fed to me.
Right, so later on, I'm going to get the secret of how to beat that algorithm from you, from the person who started and created it. Now, speaking of companies you've started, what is it that you're doing that is different from, I would say, or what you're trying to create here that you're hoping will kind of open a new way of thinking?
Yeah, so I think, to start, right, it was, I spent a total of exactly 20 years in Silicon Valley. So I moved out there in 1999 through PayPal, through YouTube, Google Ventures, like Delicious, doing a few VC investments in 2019. It was exactly 20 years, and this is still before COVID started. As a father of kind of two young kids at the time, I really wanted, it was through we were like remodeling our house, and it would have been much easier just to find another house in the same zip code and not have to pull the kids out of school and not find new housing, and certainly not move to halfway around the world to Asia. But I really thought that it was an eye-opening experience for me to have gone from living in, it's the opposite, but it was born, spent a few years in Taiwan, then moved to Chicago, and then I did a few years of boarding school, so left home at the age of 15, then going myself to Silicon Valley. I think all those segments were very important in shaping and how I, down to the level of just how I perceive anything that I see on a daily basis, like how I form opinions and how I try to look at different things from different perspectives. And so I just thought that it was so important for me to be able to give that same opportunity to, at the time they were entering second grade and fourth grade or something. And so around the same time that I moved to the US, I wanted them to do that. But that trip was supposed to be just a year, 2 years, until we finished the remodel of the kitchen, and then they got an idea of what it was like to live in Asia, to move back. And now, fast forward 6 years later, we're still here, still living full-time in Taiwan. Kids are still going to school in Taiwan, and I think one part of that definitely was COVID, a year or even sooner than that, a few months after coming here, COVID hitting. And I think part of that was Taiwan handled COVID very well, where I think school was kind of paused for a week, but then they were able to go back to school, so they never had to be using Zoom all the time, Monday through Friday, and I think that when we decided to extend that stay in Taiwan kind of indefinitely, that was also a question to myself, like, okay, well, so what? It's no longer going to be a 1-year stay or 2-year stay. What can I do to do something here in Taiwan, right? And I think that such an interesting part to me has always been still this continuation of doing kind of like innovation startups, like just trying to take something that was more of a conventional market and whether or not you can add a little bit more efficiency if you added technology to it.
Given Taiwan's ecosystem, do you think something like or someone else could start something like YouTube, something that people are very unfamiliar with, and take off the way YouTube did, and that change, like be a major disruptor? Does Taiwan have that ecosystem to allow a disruptor to thrive here?
Yeah, I think that's like the $1.65 billion question or something.
You just need Google to buy it, basically, is what you're saying.
I mean, one historical fact is that ever since coming to Taiwan, every summer I still go back to Silicon Valley. So every summer I still spend the summer time in Silicon Valley. And so it's still staying relatively connected to kind of the entrepreneurs there, kind of what VCs are thinking, what the angel investors with the new ideas, what's being explored, right? And it really is kind of night and day when especially that first 1 or 2 weeks when I'm back in the Bay Area. It's on multiple levels, like it's very much on pretty much every influential variable that you have, that anybody has in their lives. It's a lot more encouraging, it's a lot more positive, and pushing you to go try something new. And I think that when I do come back to Taiwan, I realize that there's the part of me that still says, like, I'm still here, and it's because that I believe that there's still potential here. But I also, these continuous trips back and forth also makes it with absolute clarity, there are differences between the two. There are reasons. It's not just complete, coin toss that company after company again, or the headquarters of all these AI companies, of all this innovation happens to be in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. And that took, to be honest, I think 50, 60 years to develop from, DC, from even from the 1970s, or way before when I moved there, from Oracle, from Sun Microsystems, and certainly like Netscape. And you continue to get many of these people that have started companies before. They would start another one, a serial entrepreneur. They would reinvest in companies. They would start funds to be able to help out other companies. And over and over, as you start climbing this, you just continue to make it, you continue to run into some of the same issues that you run into when it comes to mergers and acquisitions or going IPO, when it comes to finding other co-founders of companies, when it comes to finding those employees that's willing to leave a career path, like if they had a job in Taiwan, if they had a career at TSMC, are they willing to leave that to join a startup? Well, in Silicon Valley, if you do have a career at Google, but if there's a very appealing startup that happens to be within your kind of domain, and they give you stock equity that can compensate for it, most of them would take that chance. But in Taiwan, no, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily the fault of Taiwan or any other place that's trying to become more like Silicon Valley. It's just that Silicon Valley has 40, 50 years of successfully doing this from one company to the next. And then that whole PayPal group, that's created more companies and then gone on to create more companies and to invest in other companies and to create more companies, right? And I think that my hope in Taiwan is to be able to, I think on two levels. One of them is to be able to connect Taiwan, to be able to identify the strengths of Taiwan when it comes to engineering, when it comes to the access to be able to be close to the semiconductors and the hardware fabs here in Taiwan, the economic advantages to be able to create that here versus in Silicon Valley, being able to take advantage of that. But what's I think still missing to this day is there's not a lot of venture capital in Taiwan, and at any stage, and especially early stage, but early stage, late stage venture capital when it comes to angel investors, seed investors. It's very hard to find that. It's very difficult to find advisors, but board members, people that have gone through these exits before that can tell you like these are the things to focus on in your first 6 months, the first 12 months, and then let's focus on this. And so I think that to be honest, like I'm on a few boards of these companies where the boards of these Taiwanese companies have both local board members that have not done business really outside of Taiwan, and then I am able to see like how different what kind of the advice that these entrepreneurs are given. And I think that in Silicon Valley, a lot of it is about, always the exit is at least 10 years away. And so the focus always in these early stage or mid stage is just about growth. It's not about monetization, right? It's about how do we continue to scale? How do we continue to find new areas of growth and new sectors, new customer bases? Whereas I think in again, not just Taiwan, but many other sectors where they haven't seen these 10-year-long exits, it's about like, how do we start monetizing in 1 or 2 quarters? How do we start finding ways to be able to generate revenue out of this customer base? But do you think like any of these companies that we know that's come out of Silicon Valley, from YouTube, from Facebook, from Google, and any of these companies, if they started monetizing prematurely, that would have just meant that they started monetizing when they had 1 million users, 10 million users, right? And I think that really these platforms have become the global platforms that they are today because they really had the patience to continue to, even after that acquisition from Google with YouTube, for the first 3-4 years, it was still continuing to grow out, make it a better place to create for content creators. Don't just after the acquisition start trying to monetize the number of views that you're getting. And I think like that was some of the best decisions where Google was thinking long term after that acquisition. So for 3-4 years, it was thinking about, if we're going to put in a monetization strategy, we have to make it friendly to the content creators. It's not just about monetizing for the sake of the shareholders of Google. We have to make the users happy.
And what I've also noticed is the idea of experimentation, which in this part of the world, not just in Taiwan, I would say, that there isn't enough credence given to the idea that you need to experiment and perhaps fail a few times and then experiment again. I was going to ask you what keeps you here in Taiwan as my final question, but you talked about potential. So I will ask you, what do you want your tech legacy to be in Taiwan?
Yeah, I mean, what keeps me here and what is this kind of going back and forth, right? I think it's like with this tripod that's needed to create a company. You need the ideas, that the entrepreneurs, the co-founders of these ideas. You need the engineers and the teams that build the ideas, and you need the investors. You need the venture capital to be able to have the courage to invest, to have the risk tolerance to be able to invest in ideas that have completely remained unproven. And I think that I think you can nurture some of that, but in Taiwan, each of those three elements are at different stages of growth, right? Where I think you have a lot of talent. And in fact, like compared to Silicon Valley, sometimes even better engineers in Taiwan than in Silicon Valley. But then when it comes to these other two categories, when it comes to entrepreneurs, when it comes to investors, that's much harder to find here in Taiwan. Well, like if there are ways to be able to build these bridges, build these connections that potential entrepreneurs, if you give them the opportunity to be able to have hands-on experience, maybe working for a global company that has established a satellite office here in Taiwan, so they get to see the insides of what it's like to be building something globally, or just to even help them if they want to spend 6 months in Silicon Valley, make the right connections for them in Silicon Valley to be able to get, because it's not just about being in a geographical location that's important, but it's making those connections, and that's when you really learn from those connections and those relationships and their experiences. That's how you learn what Silicon Valley is like. I think that is one step, and for them to be then being able to have more people like that with that kind of experience to be then coming back to Taiwan to be doing their own thing, or to be also sharing the lessons that they've learned. And then finally, it's the same thing on the venture capital front. That's even harder to do, is to be able to convince two sides. I think the local venture capital from towards taking some more risk in some of the investments that they make, thinking a little bit longer term, at least 5 years out, 7 years out, rather than just thinking a few quarters out. But then I think the other part as well is convincing the VCs and funds that's not based in Taiwan to be able to put Taiwan on the map as a place that you could invest in. But a lot of this, they're all kind of entangled and tied to one another. You need to be able to showcase that it is possible to create a Skype from Taiwan. You know, it is possible to do that. And unfortunately, like the last time that Taiwan's been able to really create a global company is I think, maybe TSMC from 30, 40 years ago, right? And so I think it's taken a while for that next company to emerge, but the hope is to be able to create that PayPal, the mafia or something here in Taiwan.
And with that, we'll have to leave it there, Steve. We've run out of time, but thank you so much. Steve Chen, co-founder of YouTube, investor, dad, and so much more. Thank you so much for coming on Connected.
Yeah, let me know if I can add an additional subscriber to your channel on YouTube.
Oh, there you go. Thank you so much. And I bet along with you, just having the endorsement of Steve Chen is going to do so much.